Good evening, guys. Welcome to the stream. Like always, David, Chris, welcome to Fourth Goalpodcast. We're going to start the countdown so we can start sharing this broadcast, and we'll be right back with you.
Going to highlight 4 teams, as always, this week. And news and notes around the NFL. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you at the start of the show.
Who's getting ready for the season? One more preseason game, and then we're talking real football.
It is the Monday Night Spectacular. We hope you all get a chance to join in with us here as we discuss news and notes around the NFL. We're going to highlight 4 teams tonight, including the Raiders, the New York Jets. We're going to talk about the Seattle Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tonight. And so, how you doing, Chris? How's your week?
I'm doing pretty good. My week's been pretty good. Great. How's yours been, buddy?
I am gearing up for all of the fantasy football leagues that I'm in. I've got the One Money League that I joined, with you, and then I've got another group of people that want me to join their money league. I've got a few fun ones that I do on ESPN. I've got a dynasty league in Sleeper, and then Yahoo. So I got a few sprinkled everywhere, as far as being involved and having fun. I try to keep it under 10 leagues altogether, but I have my main dynasty one, and then I'm joining the 2 money leagues this year. Those are going to be my main focus, but I'm excited, to get to drafting. I got a couple of full weekends coming up here, with drafts and everything. What are you looking like on the side of drafts?
Right now I just got the One Money League, and then I'm going to set up the Free Renegades League like we did last year. I just got to try to contact to see who's all active still in that league, and get a hold of them and set that up. But right now, my main focus is obviously the Money Dynasty League that we just both joined. I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Still got some open spots, so anybody that's close to us and or knows us or whatever, get in while you can. It'll be fun. I'll be glad to take your money. Be glad to take your money.
And David thinks he's taking the money, but I'm taking the money.
Well, hey, listen. The truth be told is that if you win, it'll only be because you take my quarterback, my tight end, my team players. Because you damn sure ain't going to load them up with Detroit Lions and think you're going to win it.
Hey, the one thing I do in fantasy is I don't take a lot of Lions players. And I do that for reasons. Because if you do that, you're setting yourself up to fail because of bye weeks. If you got the whole team, your favorite team, one bye week will kill you. And to me, bye weeks are some of the hardest things to conquer.
Yeah. Well, that's why, you mix it up. I like to mix it up myself. There's the high-powered offenses in the league from last year. A lot of good wide receivers. Not looking really great, in my opinion, for running backs this year. There are a few that are kind of elite status, but a lot of these guys are getting older, or perhaps, they're starting to do running back by committee at a lot of these teams. One, because then they don't have to pay these guys top of the market money. 2, less wear and tear, so they have longer careers. And 3, it's a passing league now. You run the football to keep people honest, but for the most part, when it all comes down to it, you're throwing the football down the field, and that brings me to watching the preseason games. We've seen a couple of weekends now of preseason games, and I can tell you, Bo Nix is going to be the starting quarterback for Denver. They haven't announced it yet. Absolutely believe that he will be the starter. Jalen Daniels has been named the starter for the Washington Commanders. We've got Gardner Minshew. We're going to talk about the Raiders here first. Real soon, he's been named the starter over Aiden O'Connell for the Raiders in Las Vegas. Sam Darnold, by default, is going to be the starter for the Vikings. A very surprising injury out of nowhere, really. You got J.J. McCarthy tore his meniscus, but there was no indication in the game that anything had happened. There was some talk that maybe this was something that had happened prior to being in the league, but there were no red flags at the combine. Albert Breer said today on the Dan Patrick Show that there was no indication that there was anything wrong with him prior to the game, prior to the draft. And so, it's just something that kind of creeped up. And so they're going to go ahead and declare him out for the season, which I'm surprised. I really thought, if it's a 6-week injury, he could be on the long-term IR, give him a chance, to just get healed up all the way, and then bring him back later in the season to get a little bit more experience under his belt. But he looked great in preseason. Yeah. And so maybe they just think it'd be best if they let him sit for the year, no chance of re-injuring it or whatever, and then, he'll be the starter going into next season.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's just what they're doing. They're just playing extra safe. And, probably, they did that. Bridgewater did get that serious injury, So that could be playing a factor with Minnesota. Like, last time, but maybe this time we do it. But I'm surprised, too, because usually those injuries are a quick fix, a couple weeks, and usually players can play. But, with the rookie quarterback, we see teams do it all the time. They want this rookie to sit for a year. Now they have a legit excuse why he's sitting for the year. They don't have to sit there and fight the media if they're losing. Or why ain't the rookies getting the chance, et cetera. Because now they got the simple excuse. He's injured.
Yeah.
Well,
and then so, talking about rookie quarterbacks, looks like Michael Penix Jr. will not play in the last preseason game. That pretty much solidifies the fact that Kirk Cousins will start the season as the quarterback for Atlanta. Caleb Williams looked really good in their game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Another Mahomes-esque throw on his part to Rome Odunze down the field. I tell you what, that's going to be a big-time combination this year. I'm interested to see, because Keenan Allen hasn't played, if Rome is going to be the number one, target for Caleb, or is he going to use Allen, DJ Moore? They have a lot of weapons. I think they're a dangerous team. They could sneak into the playoffs, as I mentioned earlier in this offseason.
Good possibility.
You've spoken before. We talked about the chance that you thought that he might be a bust. I know it's just preseason. I know there's a lot of hype going into the season. But what's your take now that you've seen these plays that he has made?
My take is he's looking good in preseason, and I'll give the benefit of the doubt. He's looking better than I expected. Now, but these are also against second, third stringers. Players are not going full speed, full potential. So to me, is we have to see if this play translates into the regular season against top tier guys. They're
going to have a test early. I think Tennessee's got a pretty good defense, especially a really good secondary that they have, revamped. They got L'Jarius Sneed. They brought in Jamal Adams. They got Quandre Diggs. I just think that, playing against Tennessee, we're really going to see, they got Justin Simmons up front there, on their defensive line. There's going to be some pass rush. And so I think we'll know early on if you could say, man, this guy's for real. I was wrong. Or, well, it was the first game and, we just got to see.
I will say this. If he comes right out of the gate for week one and makes these plays and plays to a level where it makes me honor that I was wrong, I'll give him his flowers. No problem. But, this is just what I want to bring up. As much as I want to say I'm wrong and give him his flowers, it's like me talking about the Lions and Chiefs game this weekend. It was a great game, but it was so sloppy between the second and third strings
Yeah.
out there that we would look stupid on even bragging really about it, because it was like one team had the game won and another game was like, hey, I don't want the football, you take it. You know what I mean? Like, you take it. I don't want it. I don't want this game. You take it.
I'll tell you my biggest regret of the weekend. Okay. Ron was talking last week about how you guys don't have a kicker. Okay.
Yeah.
And me and you stuck up for Jake Bates, and then we're watching the game and he misses the extra point. Okay. And so I texted Ron, and I think I texted you. I said, well, I guess you do need a kicker. And then he wins it with a field goal at the end of the game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, open my big mouth and stick foot in.
Well, it's just not even that. It's shit. Yesterday, he was kicking 64-yarders in outside practice. Like it was a kick.
By the way, talking about long-term kicks, long field kicks, did you see the 66-yarder by Brandon Aubrey, the kicker for the Cowboys, against the Raiders this last week?
No, I did not, but I heard about it.
When Justin Tucker made his 66-yarder, okay, it hit the crossbar and went over. Yep. This thing cleared the crossbar by that far easy. Okay.
Wow.
I mean, and it was right down the middle.
That's nice.
Yeah,
Also,
these kickers are getting better and better at their long distance kicks. And so, I'm not surprised. You got the likes of the Jake Bates coming up. Brandon Aubrey was in one of the spring leagues before this. They're getting a lot of kickers out of these other leagues that are demonstrating what kind of leg they've got and how deep they can kick it. Tucker's always been real accurate and been able to kick deep. Butker in the Super Bowl, the longest field goal ever in the Super Bowl. And he has routinely made 50-plus yard field goals. Remember the 13-second game against the Buffalo Bills to tie it, to take it to overtime. When the pressure's on, these guys are legit from distance and accuracy.
Oh, yeah, they are for sure. Speaking of guys, I don't know if you guys got kids or something, but I bought this. I don't know if you guys can really see it. I don't know if it's coming too clear on my screen. But it's $12 from local Walmart.
Is it a giant penny bank with the Lions logo?
Yep.
That's awesome.
I got it for $12. I took an old apple juice big container and I was putting my coins in there, and it sucked coming out because you had to shake it, I was walking to Walmart, didn't need it, wasn't looking for a bank, nothing.
Sure.
Just ran in there to get something real fast. Walked right past. I seen it. I'm like, $12. I'm snagging that. Came home. Now I cleaned my whole truck out of change. I have no change laying around anywhere now with this damn thing.
Well, there you go. Well, at least you got a place to put it all now. See?
Yeah, I just figured to show it. In case somebody had kids and they want a piggy bank, $12. I might go buy another one so I can put Kool-Aid in here. So on Tuesdays, after Victory Tuesdays, I'll be sitting here with a giant piggy bank filled with blue Kool-Aid.
Oh, it's not going to have Kool-Aid in it. It's going to have something a lot stronger than that.
Think about it. Just picture me now.
I can picture you now.
Picture me now. I got this. I still got the cigar.
Oh my goodness!
We have Victory Tuesday.
You better have a really long straw.
Yeah, I would definitely need one for sure.
I've seen those before. I think they have them for every team at Walmart. I've seen the red one. It looks like a Coke bottle, but you get close up, it's got the Chiefs logo right on there. They're always trying to sell shit, all the time. that's it's a cross between generic and official,
That's
And
why I figured it's a perfect opportunity.
something fun to get. That's great. Well, listen, unless you've got other news and notes from the NFL, let's get to our first team.
Okay. Here we go. Let's talk about them Las Vegas Raiders.
Hope Gregory Drake's tuning in, or Jeremy Davis. They're big Raiders fans. And so we said it earlier. Gardner Minshew, of course, has been named the starter and for the season, and he was brought in. He played for Indianapolis last year, almost led them to the playoffs when Anthony Richardson went down last year. And they bring in Alexander Madison at running back. Now, I'm not a fan of this at all for the Raiders. I mean, I'm not a Raider fan, so I don't mind. But Madison was a fumble machine in Minnesota last year. He's going to come in and play the backup role to Zamir White, who's going to take over for, of course, Josh Jacobs, who ended up going to the Green Bay Packers because they didn't want to pay him, which is crazy to me. Wide receiver Jalen Guyton comes in. Tight end Harrison Bryant is basically going to be a third or fourth tight end, just a blocking tight end. But they did their best to try and improve the offensive line. They bring in Cody Whitehair. They bring in Andres Pete. Pete comes over from the Saints because they're just struggling over there with their salary cap. Couldn't afford to pay him. But the Raiders paid big money to get Christian Wilkins away from the Dolphins to help that defensive line. And, these players come in to replace there was a couple of good players I think they lost. But I just think that the system and the coach, there was just a lot of problems there, in Las Vegas. Garoppolo ends up leaving after they had signed him to a big contract. But they've added a fullback. So they're going to be in some I formations this year. Going to have somebody there to lead block for Zamir White and Alexander Madison. To take over for Jacob Johnson. They got, like as we talked about, Josh Jacobs is gone. Brandon Bolden, was a Josh McDaniels, former New England Patriot guy. Hunter Renfrow is the one I'm surprised about. I just think that he's a better player than he showed last year, but the system didn't fit him. The quarterbacks weren't looking for him. I think he is ending up in New Orleans, and it'll be a lot better when he gets back together with David Carr. They let a lot of tight ends go during, free agency, Austin Hooper and Jesper Hornstead, because they drafted Michael Mayer last year, if you remember, and now first-round pick Brock Bowers joins the cast of characters. And when Nick Saban was asked, this offseason, and if you have watched the Hard Knocks offseason with the New York Giants, they talked to Nick Saban. They talked to him, and they talked to Belichick. They talked to several people in the offseason, and they said, hey, in college football, who were the guys that, gave them a lot of trouble? And they said Malik Neighbors, who they ended up drafting with the Giants, and Brock Bowers, the tight end from Georgia. And so I think he's going to be a problem. They're going to team him with Michael Mayer, a lot of double tight end sets, a lot of quick passes to help negate, what I think might be not a great offensive line. In the third round, they picked center Jackson Powers Johnson, but it's the defense now. Are they going to be still really good? I thought they were pretty good near the end of the season under new head coach Antonio Pierce, who was the interim coach last year. He's had that tag taken off. Now the full coach. They've talked some smack this offseason. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas. They've added some players that I think will fit the system that they're using. They have some dynamic players, Chris. They've got Devontae Adams. They've got these tight ends. Zamir White has looked really good in preseason. Give me your thoughts on the Las Vegas Raiders.
Honestly, their defensive line is going to probably be one of the best, if not the best in the league. You got Mason Crosby and Kristen Wilkins on the same line. Who the fuck are you stopping? Who are you double teaming? Because double team this guy, this one's going to kill your quarterback. You choose. So that means you're going to have to probably run 2 double teams on both defensive ends.
Well, and they drafted Tyrese Wilson last year. Now, he did not show out in his rookie year, but you would think that, you know, him coming into his second year, he's going to know the league a lot better. And I expect that he's going to be a better player in his second year.
Yeah. As long as Minshew can go in there and play to a level higher than he did with the Colts and everything, this team could be a scary team. They might not be the pushover in the West like people think they're going to be. I like Pierce as the head coach. I think he has the ability like Campbell to have the players buy in. And you heard like Mason Crosby talk about it in the interviews that it went from a whole different atmosphere and went from miserable to like, let's do this, and just watching the little interactions they had after the games when they were winning, starting to win with Antonio, seeing them in the locker room as a team, they look like with that atmosphere, they might not be the same old Raiders.
Yeah. Well, so we go from the Las Vegas Raiders, the Pirates, if you will, of the AFC, to the Pirates of the NFC. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next on our list, Chris.
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay made the playoffs last year. You guys had to knock them off, and it was not an easy game.
No.
And, if you'd like to elaborate on how that game went and what they've done this offseason, go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. See, if I remember correctly, last year when we started our broadcast, I talked Baker Mayfield up. And I had a few people on our broadcast in that particular show comment and tell me I was wrong on my opinion on Baker Mayfield and sector. This dude's a dog. And what I mean by a dog, he's that nuisance of guy. He's that type of guy that you can't just get rid of. Look how much smack people talked about him in college with his cockiness and the way he played the game and let his motion out on the field. Never stopped him, and it never made him not be a good quarterback. But unfortunately for Baker, his NFL has not been as good as his college. That's due to the teams and situations Baker Mayfield has been put in. As you've seen, he went to LA, played one game, read the playbook on a damn iPod, came in there and slinged the ball and actually fucked the Lions for the number 1 draft pick by doing what he did. He comes to Tampa Bay under a coach with a system. And there ain't no bullshit in the system. He takes the team to the playoffs. I don't think anybody had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs under him. No one did in the beginning of the season. No one was talking playoffs last year with Baker. And I'm not saying Baker's, this superstar. But what I'm saying is he's shown last year he can win in this league. He can take you to the playoffs if you give him. I think
he's a gamer. He's a gamer. Absolutely. This was a team that, just a few years ago, won the Super Bowl. They're the one team to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Okay. Now, granted, the Chiefs didn't have an offensive line in that game, and Mahomes was running for his life, but you had Tom Brady with an array of players around him. They coached him up. They brought some stability to the organization. A lot of those players are still there. Granted, the offensive line has been completely overhauled at this point, with the exception of Tristan Wirfs. Okay. Yeah. But the defense is almost completely intact. They brought in some players at running back. They brought in some players at tight end. And then they put in some pieces to add depth to their defense. And so, Tampa made the playoffs last year. I thought that, there's a good opportunity here for Baker to lead a team more than 1 year in a row in the same system. Now, they've got a different offensive coordinator, okay, than they had before, but it's the same system because the coach that's taking over at offensive coordinator is running the same system as the guy that left to become the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers, Dave Canales.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the main things. Baker Mayfield was an unrestricted free agent. He could have gone anywhere, and there were some people out there that thought he was going to leave, but he's got good camaraderie there. He showed he's a franchise starting quarterback. He has nobody there to challenge him as the starter, and he's got weapons around him. Mike Evans re-signed, this year, and then if you take a look at what they've added compared to what their losses are, I think they improved their team.
I do. They lost a couple quarterbacks. I mean, we took one of their best quarterbacks, but guess what? They reloaded with quarterbacks. They picked a couple quarterbacks up in free agency. They lost a good linebacker in the offseason. Guess what? They drafted a linebacker. They got a safety. They're still there. They have the tools and the capability to win the division again.
The problem I see with that is I think New Orleans has gotten better, and we know Atlanta has gotten better. You don't have to worry about Carolina in this division, but I think that while Tampa may be a better team, I'm not sure their record is going to represent that at the end of the season. In fact, I have them missing the playoffs, Chris.
No, don't get me wrong. To me, you could have them missing the playoffs. That's a fair judgment because you made some valid points. You have two other teams that are just good. But I'm on the other side of the fence because guess what? I gave New Orleans. I was with you last year on New Orleans. They failed me miserably. I don't believe that in them now. I have to see them on the field prove me wrong. Prove me that they're better than Tampa. Right now, I think Tampa's still the better team. But Atlanta is a lot better with Kirk Cousins. So, they might not win the division, but I think this team can still make it back to the playoffs. Unless New Orleans proves that they're legit.
Yeah, taking a look at the additions and some subtractions here. Sterling Shepard comes over at wide receiver from the Giants, and he was a really good receiver for them. They just have a lot of moving parts. They don't have a whole lot of, salary cap room. They ended up, improving their defense a little more in New York. They paid all that money to Daniel Jones. And so, they just couldn't afford to keep everyone. And so Shepard got away from them. David Wells comes in at tight end. And then, of course, we've talked about their offensive line being revamped. The drafting of Graham Barton, he will start at center. You've got these other guys coming in, and they're basically for depth. Randy Gregory's on this list, but he's had some off-the-field trouble again, and it sounds like they are going to cut him. They lost some corners that were pretty good, traded away Carlton Davis, as you mentioned, to the Lions. They bring in Bryce Hall. And, they bring in Jordan Whitehead, was a former Buccaneer. They let him test free agency. He goes to the Jets, comes right back to Tampa. He knows the system. He'll be a force in the secondary. When it comes to losses, Shaq Barrett ended up retiring anyway when he went to the Dolphins. No loss there. Devin White, he signed with Philadelphia. Just wanted too much money, to stick around in Tampa. They drafted Chris Braswell, here in the second round. I think he'll be a starting linebacker for him. Ryan Neal goes out the door. In comes Jordan Whitehead. I think that, like we said, the parts that left, probably not as good as the parts that are coming in. A lot more youth, a lot more versatility. But when you take a look at the schedule, and that is why I was saying I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, they got a killer schedule. They got to go to Detroit, to Kansas City. Now, they get San Francisco in Tampa, but they're going to Dallas. They're going to the Chargers. Of course, they're playing in their division, Atlanta, and they got to go to Atlanta once, but they get Baltimore at home on a Monday night. But, I just think that this is a tough schedule. We don't know what we're going to get out of the Giants. Carolina, we just talked about Vegas, and they'll get Vegas in Tampa. But I just don't see them getting more than 7 wins out of this schedule. And it's unfortunate because I think they're going to be a better team. And I'm concerned that after making the playoffs last year, if they have a down year in their record, this could be where they axe Todd Bowles, and then Baker Mayfield will have to start all over with another set of coaches again unless they promote the offensive coordinator or they keep him.
Yeah. Do you think he really gets fired, though, if they don't make the playoffs this year?
I think if they only win 7 games, he'll be on the hot seat for sure. It'll depend on, if are they getting blown out, or are they just, they're losing by a field goal here and there. And, if management is typically, I would say in Tampa, they are a little patient, but not a lot patient. They made the playoffs last year. I think they expect them to make the playoffs again. If Atlanta comes in and wins a lot of games, and there's no doubt going to be the division winner, and Tampa doesn't even make it to a 500 or better record, then, I think that there's a real chance that he will get, he'll get fired, But, so we talked about the AFC, we talked about the NFC. Let's go to an AFC team. And this whole team completely revolves around the health of Aaron Rodgers. And, of course, we're talking about the New York Jets. And so with the New York Jets, I think they did one good thing for sure, is they brought in a bona fide backup quarterback, because you cannot rely on Aaron Rodgers to stay healthy. Even before his back-to-back MVP campaigns with Green Bay over the last 5 years, he had a broken collarbone twice in 3 years in Green Bay.
Yep.
And so I'd be real concerned about his health. They bring Tyrod Taylor over to be the backup quarterback. He comes from New York Giants, so he's been in the area already. He just switches locker rooms. They're going to run the football with a fullback this year, which is a staple of the West Coast style offense that they're going to be running. You've got Mike Williams, who was, basically just floating out there. He's had some injury issues when he was with the Chargers, but he could have gone anywhere he wanted. He wanted to play with Aaron Rodgers. He comes to the Jets. They traded for Morgan Moses. They signed Tyron Smith from Dallas to bolster their offensive line. Javon Kinlaw played for Robert Saleh in San Francisco. He has not been stellar the last couple of years. He's going to be reunited with his defensive coordinator from San Francisco. I think that'll make a big difference on a team that had a pretty good defense last year, Chris.
Yeah. There's one of the reasons why they were a hard team to beat is because they were so good defensively, they just couldn't score any points. So,
now, you got Hassan Reddick here, okay? He's requested to be traded. He got traded there for a conditional third-round pick from the Philadelphia Eagles. And he has averaged 12 sacks a season each of the last 3 years on 3 different teams. And so, I just think that he's a great player, but he wants to get paid. I think the Jets have the money to pay him, but they just don't want to. And they're not going to trade him. They've said that they weren't. And this isn't one of those, we have no interest in trading him at this time type of thing. I think they're going to force him to either play or sit. And at some point in time, the money that he is losing, is going to outweigh the sitting and waiting for, to get a better deal.
Yeah.
And so, I think Hassan Reddick is a really good player, but, the Jets are playing hardball in this situation, and, it's not going well right now.
And we all know the Jets ownership is probably one of the reasons. And why I say this is because from a Lions standpoint, it took us from the old Ford to the son to his wife, now to his daughter, to actually see some change in our team here in Detroit. And I feel like a lot of that's with the Jets too. Their ownership's shown over the years that it's all about the money for them. And that's all they care about. And that's one reason why I feel like they don't want to pay. They won't pay Reddick. It's because they just don't want to spend no more money. And I feel like, and this is why I feel bad for Jets fans, because I feel like this has cost them chances of actually being a real good team. For consistently. They've had a couple more chances than the Lions in the past years to be relevant and to make something happen. With Sanchez, they made it, 3 AFC championship games, was it? In that era? When Rex Ryan was the coach?
Yeah, well, they went to 2, yeah.
They went to 2 for sure. So, but since then, they've literally done nothing. It's been a circus. So.
Yeah, and then, as far as their losses are concerned here, they gave up on Zach Wilson. He was supposed to be, their franchise player, but they threw him to the wolves with the bad offensive line. The defense wasn't hot at that time. He has ended up with a different offensive coordinator every year that he has been in the league. And unfortunately, he's looking like he could be the odd man out in Denver. So, I feel bad for Zach Wilson. Randall Cobb was somebody that, Aaron Rodgers wanted to play with, so he brought him over. Looks like he's going to retire. C.J. Azuma has been a journeyman tight end. When he has a pretty good quarterback, he shows out. But with all of the backups playing last year, not a good year for him. And then here is the mass exodus of offensive linemen who apparently individually are good players, but you put them together and they can't stop anybody. So Mekhi Becton, Dwayne Brown, Connor McGovern, Laken Tomlinson, they're all starting for other teams this year. Okay?
Yeah.
But for the Jets, can't stop anybody. John Franklin Myers, defensive end, Quentin Jefferson. Some of these guys, got the bag to go elsewhere because they're so deep on the defensive line that, the Jets think that they can get by without these guys. And then, Jordan Whitehead was ready to go back, to Tampa. I don't think he liked the style of coaching in New York. And, then
He didn't like those taxes.
Offensive lineman drafted in the first round by the Jets. Continue working on the offensive line. And then a third-round wide receiver who I think may end up having a future there with the Jets. He's a really good player. Could be the third player on the team behind, Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams. But you look at their schedule, I think they're going to get pummeled right out of the gate by the Niners on Monday Night Football. And, after that, I think that it'll be kind of hit and miss whether or not they're going to do okay. I think they can win at Tennessee. They can win against New England, probably sweep them, facing Denver. Denver's going to be a new animal this year. With Bo Nix there, I think their defense will be improved. I think that'll be a good game. It'll definitely be a good game. They got to go to London to play Minnesota, but they're at Pittsburgh. They got to go all the way across the country to Arizona, and I think Arizona is going to be a much improved team. They were feisty last year, and if Kyler Murray's healthy, and now they got Marvin Harrison Jr. there, I think that'll be a tough game for them on the road. They got to go to Jacksonville. They luckily get the Rams, at MetLife Stadium, but that's going to be a hard game for them. That could be a game that knocks them out of the playoffs late in the season, and there's just probably nothing that they can do about it because the Rams are going to be an elite team this year, I think. And then, Buffalo, Miami to finish the year. Just I think this is a tough schedule considering there are some soft spots there, but they got Houston coming in. They got Indianapolis coming in, and I think Anthony Richardson's going to be, kind of like, I'm not going to call him Michael Vick, but a lighter version of that, because he's going to be a running takeoff quarterback.
That's if he's healthy, though.
Passing game, if he pays attention to his passing game, I think he's got some weapons there. Adonai Mitchell, Michael Pittman Jr., and then, with Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, that's going to be a tough game too. So any other thoughts on the New York Jets from you, Chris?
To me, it really depends on the healthy of Aaron Rodgers. Can he make it through the season? Is he going to play or is he going to cry more than he plays? I mean, that's this. To me, there's a lot of circus going on in New York. It's hard for me to give a prediction. I don't think they have that good of a year. I'll be surprised.
Yeah, I don't have them making the playoffs. In fact, I have them winning. I think, and I will do this really soon because the season's coming up. We got 4 more teams to highlight. They're the lower end teams, and so we'll kind of fly through them next week. But I'm going to have my predictions ready and graphics ready. You should get your personal predictions ready and make some graphics if you want. And we'll compare what each of us thinks is going to happen going into this NFL season. But we got one more team to talk about this week, and they're in the NFC West, which is going to be a pretty tough division again this year. Like I said before, I think the Rams are going to be an elite team. And so the 49ers are in there. And so you got a new coach coming to the Seattle Seahawks. And so what are they going to do in Seattle? Are they going to be a surprise team? Because they've made a lot of changes. They've got the new head coach who's the former defensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens. They're going to start with Geno Smith, but they brought in a couple of other capable quarterbacks here in the offseason. And, in the beginning of training camp, they traded for Sam Howell from Washington, and he started most of the season last year. But he didn't have an offensive line. The defense was playing lackluster. Seattle's defense, I expect, is going to be dynamite. It's what the offensive line can do because we know they've got weapons. Take a look at Seattle. Tell me what you think of what they've done, Chris.
Seattle. I mean, they got their O line. They went heavy in O line this offseason. And that's huge because to me that was one of the things that hurt them last year.
Yeah.
They added defense. They added a linebacker, safety, a defensive tackle. Also, they drafted a linebacker and a defensive tackle. And they added a wide receiver and a tight end. I think Seattle's sitting pretty because guess what? If something happens with Geno Smith, injury, or his confidence, or he's just not playing to the level that he has played the last 2 years, they got Sam Howell that can come in and sling the ball. We've seen him do it. We know he can score. We know he has the ability to ball. He never had an offensive line or defense or the right receivers.
He had Terry McLaughlin, okay, and Logan Thomas the tight end, but they just if you can't get the ball to him because you're being pummeled back there. They got DK Metcalf, they got Tyler Lockett, they add Laviska Shenault. Of course, they got Jackson Smith and Jigba last year in the draft. So, I mean, it looks like they're really good to go when it comes to wide receiver. We know they added another running back last year to go with their starter. So they've got Zach Cabernet came in last year. So they got a two-headed running attack. If the changes they made to the offensive line, are as good as advertised, I think Seattle can threaten for a wild card spot for sure.
Yeah. I think they have the ability to make the playoffs.
Yeah. You take a look at their schedule, and of the ones we have looked at, with the exception of the last month of the season, I would say this is a pretty decent schedule where they can get some wins built up before they hit, the graveyard shift at the end of the season. They've got at New England, they got to play against the Giants. They're going to play, but they got, obviously they're going to play at San Francisco. But they've got Green Bay, Minnesota, at Chicago, and at the Rams the last 4 weeks of the season. So even if they build up a lot of good, positive energy early in the year, I think they're getting killed at the end of the season unless they are healthy and the defense is Legion of Boom-esque.
Yeah. Their defense is scary out there. They're not a pushover. Last year was just offensive line. You seen the year before, they were pretty good the year before.
Yeah, they were able to run the football, but last year they had a lot of trouble with that. Plus their guys got injured. They had an injured starter, then Cabernet went down. They had to play DJ Dallas, who's gone to Arizona. And, they just I'm glad that they made some changes to their offensive line. I think that Seattle, this is one of those teams that could be sneaky good earlier in the year. But like I said, at the end of the season, I think that they're hitting a murderer's row. The last 4 weeks of the season, they're going to play the NFC North and at the Rams at the end of the year. They could be eliminated by December, And so, that's my take on Seattle. And so we're down to 4 teams and then predictions. 4 teams and predictions coming up this next week. We've got the Colts and the Patriots. We've got the Carolina Panthers. And there's one other team, and I got to look at my list to tell you who it is because I can't remember who the last team is that we haven't covered yet. It's the New York Giants. And so those are the 4 teams we'll look at next week, and we will have our preseason predictions. Who's going to win the divisions, what their records are going to be. We're going to have I will have what the wild card matchups, the divisional playoff round, the conference championship round, and then the Super Bowl, a lot of which Chris is going to be really happy about right to the bitter end.
Let me guess. And with that saying, David's predicting the Lions go to Super Bowl versus KC and then lose to the KC. Say your prediction.
I'm not saying that at all. They have to tune in, and you have to be part of the broadcast to find out what I think is going to happen in the 2024-2025
Well, Ron, I'm sorry you just got home. I wish you were able to join us, but it was a quick show. So you might have to rewind us to see what we talked about tonight. Sorry. I was available Sunday, just so everybody knows.
I am looking forward to tomorrow night's edition of Hard Knocks with the Chicago Bears. I'm looking forward to the Thursday night game between the Bears and the Chiefs. I don't know how long the starters are going to play, but I'm looking forward to seeing Caleb Williams versus Patrick Mahomes. I hope it comes through and they play at least the first quarter. And then, that we're going to wind down with the last of the preseason games. Let me take a quick peek here at what could be worth watching if the starters play. And that is the Baltimore Ravens and the Green Bay Packers are playing on Saturday. That's a pretty good one. Detroit plays Pittsburgh, which will be interesting to me because Pittsburgh has not looked good offensively here in the preseason, and they're having a hard time deciding who's going to be the starting quarterback between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Justin Fields' mobility gives him, I think, the edge over Russell Wilson, but I'm kind of under the impression that they told Russ he would be the starter if he came and signed with Pittsburgh because they hadn't made the deal for Justin Fields yet. And Russell Wilson was supposed to be in the pole position to be the starter. And so you guys aren't going to play any of your starters in the preseason here, are you?
I don't think so.
Of course, you've always got the Giants-Jets game, but I'm not expecting Aaron Rodgers to play at all. Rams at Houston on Saturday afternoon. That's another good one.
Stafford ain't playing.
Yeah. But Stetson didn't look pretty good in this last game after throwing all them interceptions against Dallas in the previous game.
Well, that's a good thing since he missed all last season for the unmissed reason.
But that's all I got. We look forward to next week, the final week of the preseason. And, we're getting ready to go into the regular season. It's going to be a lot of fun. And, we'll have our preseason predictions.
Yes, we will. So, everybody, Sunday or Monday for next week, I'll get the advertisement out a lot earlier. I apologize. I totally got sidetracked, and then last minute we changed it to Monday. And then, of course, yesterday forgot to post the advertisement. I had to do it this morning. So I want to apologize for that. So stay tuned. It's either going to be Sunday night or Monday night again next week. And then the season starts, and then it'll be real simple because then it'll be Tuesday nights.
Yep, Tuesday night.
So
it'll say Tuesday night spectacular
instead of Monday.
Yeah, it says Sunday. I've never changed it to Monday.
I've changed.
It's always going to be Sunday, and then it turned into Monday.
This year got a little messed up. Next year, I want to be a little bit more organized. I just, like going into last year, I wasn't a landscaper or at the end of last season. Then we took our little break and hiatus, and then bam, right after the draft, I started this business, and then that's when everything started getting rocky.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us that did. And for anybody that joined us late and ends up watching this, after it's already recorded and missed the stream of the live version, thanks for tuning in. Leave some questions or comments for things you'd like us to talk about. We'll be sure to do that on the next show. And Ron will like the Tuesday night spectacular.
And we will like the Tuesday nights because Ron will be with us every night. Ron will be messaging us before it's time for us to go live. Like, hey, you guys going to be on time tonight? Is it 9 or 8?
8 Central. Or 8 your time. 7 Central.
8 Eastern, 7 Central time.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks a lot, Chris, for being the host as always.
No problem, guys. You guys have a wonderful night. We'll talk to you next week. Good luck, you guys. Hopefully everybody stays healthy through your preseasons and practices. I know there's been a couple big injuries that happened the weeks prior. And I know every day it's kind of nervous reading reports to see where you're going to find out. But good luck to all your teams. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Good night, David. Later, guys.